Whoa.
Okay, and I want to share my screen. And I think that's it. Can everybody see my screen?
Absolutely.
Roger that.
Okay, cool.
Got it.
Well, good evening, everyone. For those who may have joined this party late, I'm Bruce Johnson, and I serve as the chief of the Auxiliaries Youth Programs Division. This evening is our fourth quarterly AuxScout All Hands Staff Forum for this year. I hope that all AuxScout staff were informed about the forum, and I appreciate the many questions that have been submitted in advance. I'd also like to welcome any Sea Scout leaders who have joined us this evening. This is an opportunity to hear how the auxiliary is supporting the Sea Scout program, and please feel free to invite your auxiliary counterparts to your meetings. So this evening, we're going to start with some AuxScout news, and after that, we'll address your questions and several discussion topics. This forum will be about 60 minutes, and we have a pretty full agenda, but we found last time, I think, that leaving your mics open is okay. If you have any background noise or whatever, if you'd please mute yourself and go ahead and leave your cameras going. If you have an urgent question, by all means, ask it, or if you'd prefer, you can put it in the chat box. I'm not going to be actively watching the chat box, but Holly will be, and she will keep me honest. Starting out with the news items, here are the topics that I'm hoping that we'll cover this evening, and I just want to see whether all of the presenters are here. I hadn't seen John Michael join us yet, so we may have to come back to him. John Michael is going to be talking about the youth program's AuxScout staff portal and what he's working on with monthly reporting forms. That's going to represent a change in how we pass our reports forward, but he's not on the call yet, so we'll defer him. We'll be having a look at the photo archives and web asset management system that Ron Blaisdell has been working on for us. After that, Stefan Recke is going to talk about the congratulatory letters he generates on behalf of the auxiliary. Then I'm going to give you the latest updates on changes to Aux Data II. And finally, we'll wrap up the news part with succession planning. So let's see, John Michael, I don't think is on yet, so we'll just skip over him for the moment and move on to Ron. And would you fill us in, Ron, on what you're working on with photo archives?
Happy to do so. Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Or you know, maybe it was a rainy Sunday afternoon here in the Great Lakes, so therefore sitting and watching the national staff meeting wasn't so bad. Because no one wants to be outside when it's 40 degrees and raining. It just, you know, it's not pleasant. So we have developed and redeveloped, I should say, a digital asset management system on the web for all of our photo assets, as well as video assets, and you can really store just about anything in it, to tell you truthfully. It's kind of like a Dropbox in a lot of respects. But the whole idea here is to have a place where not only we can collect the photos and things like that, but to also include what's referred to as metadata. In other words, information about those photos and how they and how well they work, and you know what it can be used for and how you can search for them. Bruce, can I share?
Sure. Let me
Okay.
stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah, you know when
Um,
these see me, they see me already in the corner, out
okay.
of uniform, but
Okay.
what can I tell you?
So do you
So
have a share screen button?
I got it. I'm doing it right
Okay,
now.
go for it.
Okay. So here is the digital asset management system. We hope to have a much nicer URL than the one you see at the top. John Michael and I are still working on that. I sent him some instructions for how to make some changes, but I haven't seen those go into place yet. So these happen to be, and I happen to be on my recent screen. When you have 1,500 odd resources out there, sometimes it's easier to start with a smaller batch. So you'll notice like right here, right in the middle, it says recent. So the recent button will take you to the most recent photos that have been loaded up on the system. And you can take a look at them. You can adjust for how many are on each page. You can see I've got this blown way out. I got 240 per page. So you can set this really kind of any way you want. But the nice thing is when you look at these, and I'm just going to pull up the first image as an example. So this is from the most recent safety at sea that was held down at Curtis Bay Coast Guard Yard. And so as you can see, it tells us a lot of information about the photo initially. How big is the original file? For Bill and I, that's really important stuff because we need to know what the best resolution we can get, especially for sending something in for print. Okay, so we want high resolution photos. But you'll notice that there's also low resolution prints. There's a screen image that you can take a look at, and you can download any of these. Okay, so they're all available for you to download. Then you get down here into the details and you start to come up with the information about what are the immediate tags that have been set on this. You notice it's set up with auxiliary, it's set up with Coast Guard, it's set up with Sea Scout. So if I search on any of those terms, it's going to pop up. If I search on Curtis Bay, this is going to pop up. If I search for photos done in the United States, this will pop up. So all of these are separate fields that basically say, how can I search for information? And it's just an open search. I mean, it really is. It's just a very simple process of, you're coming in here and you'll notice that right now it says safety at sea because I was actually searching on that earlier. But, if I want to look up 11 September as an example, I can type today. And yes, it is based in the UK. That's, well, you see, it didn't quite find what I was looking for, so nothing new there. And you'll note it will tell you, by the way. So let's say you go in and you want to find a picture of someone that we don't have. You can actually set up the system to notify you when a picture that matches that information is now available. So it's very handy if you're trying to find things that we may not have, or maybe we just haven't gotten into the archives yet, or we haven't completely identified all the metadata yet. There's 1,500 odd resources. It takes a little bit of time to go through 1,500 photos.
Quick question.
Because, yes, sure.
Does it have to be exact match or can you kind of get close?
No, you can get pretty close, to tell you truthfully. Let's see here. I will spell. Now that one didn't find Curtis misspelled like that, but you'll notice it says here, try a different way of searching. And now Curtis Bay comes up. Okay, so it will help you search for things. There's geographic searches. There's more advanced searches as well that this will do. So you can see that you've got all sorts of fields that you can search by in here that are already predefined. There's actually going to be more predefined keywords that you're going to see up here. I'm just still adding them in until I get the final set. I don't want to update this page yet. But we're trying to make this as easy as possible for anybody who wants to take a look at this information. There's even a browse category over here. So you can come in here and you can say, okay, I want to look at, let's see, where's my collections? Let's see. So there's Sea Scout collection from the other day. This is the one I wanted. So let's say you just want to look at the videos. Well, here's 22 videos that we have sitting on the site right there. Now, there may be some things that are going to get updated in the future. It kind of depends on if we get orders from level 2 or not. But the nice thing is, and if you want to play the video right in here, you can. So you can actually pull this up and you can play the physical video.
My name's Hannah, and I'm the Western Region's Bosun's mate. I'm from Mariners 936 out of Dana Point, California. Sea Scouts is a part of Boy Scouts.
That was our former national bosun there. But, you know, so you can play them right in the window. You know, you can download the videos. You can, so you've got alternative ways of getting to this information. Which is nice because it really helps. And you'll see we've got a lot of the things like, and you can hover over these titles because some of them are really long, right? And you can see what it says. Well, this is the Sea Scout Coast Guard Auxiliary Relationship video, okay, that was actually built for councils. You know, here's one on the Sea Scout ship propellers Alaska long cruise, which by the way is a very interesting video to watch sometime if you take a look at that one. The propeller is out of Seattle, if memory serves me correctly, and they did a long cruise all the way up and back to Alaska. So it's, you know, there's some good videos in here. There's former safety at sea videos we've got in here. So there's a lot of different, this is another one I like in particular. It's called A Parent's Perspective. It's a really decent little video that was done by one of the parents. But you know, we've got these all in here. We're going to continue to update the metadata. I'm getting there. Just, you know, unfortunately, I found that it takes a little bit of time because it's a manual process. There's no great way to batch go in and add metadata.
I was going to ask you.
I wish. I've tried. I have found that when I upload smaller batches, like when I uploaded all these safety at sea photos, which just got published on our Dropbox the other day, I was able to take and set a lot of metadata and lock it in for every single photo. So therefore, I didn't have to go back in and manually enter all that data afterwards. But, you know, I'm only entering 100 odd photos. You know, when I did the original import, I imported like 1,400 photos. So it wouldn't have quite worked as well doing it back then. So, you know, we've done that. We just added, in fact, let me see if I can find it here. Yep, well, even though it says smile. This is actually, this is one of our Sea Scout youth that was at AIM this last year. We have a couple of them that were there. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 photos from AIM. Of our different Sea Scout participants who are at the Academy for the Immersion week that they do, that the STEM program week. And they had a great time, as I am certain that, because I could have swore I saw my my other cohort in crime. See on here somewhere. Yep, there he is. Ben will tell you, he was there with all of them. Sweating to death in Maryland. Or in Connecticut, sorry about that. So, you know, we've got photos from AIM, we've got photos from the last safety at sea at Curtis Bay. We've got all sorts of photos that we've gotten over time. And you can see some of them are things like this one. I love this one because the system tries to identify things, and I haven't changed this one on purpose because I like it. And it called this particular item became known as the arthropod. And I'm not sure I want to change it, to tell you truthfully.
Yeah, leave it.
The drone is cute, but I'd still rather call it an arthropod. So, but the system is out there. If you look at my last report, there is a link to where we have these all right now. Eventually, we will have it set up so that everybody can upload if they get photos themselves. Even though you upload the photos, they don't automatically get added into the system. One of us who is responsible for making sure that everything gets tagged and categorized and such, all that kind of good stuff, has to look at it first. So that, you know, we also make sure that we don't have uniforms that we shouldn't have in the pictures, and people not, we're trying to make sure that all the photos fit all of our guidelines that Bill and I have to deal with photos for both the youth and for the auxiliarists and Coast Guard as well. So, you know, we're taking a lot of extra time when we look at these things. But that's okay. I'm all right with taking the extra time and kind of making sure that they all fit. That's all right by me.
Ron?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Bill.
Hey, girls.
How can an individual submitting a photograph, what would be the process? And also, can you include a cut line with the photo so that a cut line travels with the photo throughout this system? So if say I need to pull up one of these safety at sea photographs, there will be the photograph, any permissions that were generated or needed, and a cut line describing who, what, where is that down here? I saw.
There is some really big, there's a caption area.
Yeah, that's
which
kind
is
of what
probably where I
at.
would put a cut line in the caption.
We might want to make that, if possible, an instruction somehow that would be where to include it. So we're not chasing around
right,
looking for where the cut line might be.
right. And by the way, it's interesting. This actually does have the ability to, if you tell it to, it will do OCR recognition of documents. So it'll extract the text. I can talk, and put that data here as well. So if sometimes you've got a scanned document and that's the only copy you've got left, you can actually OCR the document inside the system here. But yeah, we do have a caption that goes with it, Bill. So yeah, that's what we would need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So the point of all of this is so that we have approved photographs that we can incorporate into articles and public affairs things, photographs that can be used for publicizing what we're doing with the Sea Scouts. So we are, of course, reviewing the photos to make sure that the uniforms are okay, both by BSA standards and by Coast Guard auxiliary standards. And all of the photographs that are in this have the media release forms signed and on file with the Coast Guard Auxiliary Association, so that they'll be usable for this. And Ron has done a lot to get this to where we are today. What he was alluding to a moment ago was that he had the system pretty well finished on another platform, and then the software that was being used was no longer available. So he's redeveloped it for this platform, and he's well along the way. You can see what's available, but the metadata still needs some additional work so that you can search for what you're looking for, and also you have the best access points for the photos.
Is there any limitation on the camera or type of camera, like even iPhones?
It doesn't really matter whatsoever. Any type of camera you want to use, you can upload up iPhone photos. It doesn't matter.
I saw cool pics and say, hey, I think I got a really old one.
Yep, and that's an older one. But yeah, any type of digital photo, or unless you really want to sit down and scan something, if you've got some really old ones, but they may not fit our uniform standards, and that might be the issue. So
and keep in mind that for the photo to be usable, either for articles with the Coast Guard or with BSA, or for them to be used in publicity information, the higher the resolution, the better. A low res photograph may not be useful for what you're hoping to do.
And notice, by the way, that if you look at this particular photo and all of these from the safety at sea at Curtis Bay, you notice everybody is masked.
Right. We're we're going to stay off that topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
this
stay off that
evening.
topic for now.
Okay.
One last question as far as that, and that is in submission. Ron, do you suggest JPEGs? JPGs?
It doesn't. I would suggest JPEGs typically, or PNGs are typically the better of the two. But because JPEGs are easy and just about everybody takes them.
They're ubiquitous.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily do a GIF because the resolution of a GIF is way too low. You can't get a really good GIF. However, we do have some line art in here as well. Some of the logos and stuff are line art. So if people have logos and things like that that are line art, we can actually store them. So,
And if you take those into a JPEG, often it does degrade them slightly.
yes.
Yeah, JPEG is what they call a lossy format. So every time you manipulate the file, it's throwing out some of the detail. All right, well, thank you very much, Ron, and he'll keep us posted as he makes additional progress on that. And Ron, can you paste into chat the URL for where that is living right at the moment so people can start having a look at that?
Will do.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I don't think John Michael has joined us. He warned me that his flight was late, and so there was a good chance that he might not be joining us when we were ready for him. So let's move. Oops, there we go. Okay. Stefan Recke, another branch assistant for youth programs. And Stefan, how about if I let you explain what you do and what your question is for the group?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I actually looked and I started doing this project 10 and a half years ago. March 28th, 2011 was the first letter that was written. Essentially, for representing the Coast Guard Auxiliary, I've been given the approval to write letters to congratulate Eagle Scouts. Initially, it was just Eagle Scouts. And for those of you who might not know, there are about 55,000 Eagle Scouts a year. So it started as a pretty daunting exercise and activity because initially back in 2011, I was actually printing out letters and putting them in envelopes, putting stamps on them, putting labels on it, and sending them to the Eagle Scouts or the actual troops, the Eagle troops that were going to have the Eagle ceremony. So the idea is to get a letter that's relatively handwritten or printed from the Commodore congratulating the Eagle Scout on their successful Eagle Scout award. Through the process of different MOAs, we put together an MOA with the Girl Scouts. So I actually have a template for Girl Scout Gold Awards, and then also with Sea Scouts. I see that Victor was asking about the Venturing Summit rank, and to date, I have not been receiving any requests to congratulate anyone with the Venture Summit rank. And if so, the way people find out about me or find out about the program is, and I'll put let's see, I'll put this in the chat. There's actually an email alias that anyone can send an email request to this alias, and it forwards to my cgauxnet.us account. There's actually also on the web, there's a directory for anyone. This is just an example for Eagle Scouts. If you want to get congratulatory letters from the president or Congress or anyone, all different types of military organizations, police organizations. My name is, my actual email address is on that website. So the idea is they send a letter, and in batch mode, typically I try to do it once a month, if not twice a month. I generate a bunch of PDF files, and instead of sending the letters, I send a PDF back to the requesting parties for the Eagle Scout congratulatory letter. The challenge has been sometimes they send me actual hard copy letters, and being that I travel a lot, I wasn't getting them in time. They've also sent letters to Xerox. They've sent letters to the Commodore directly. They've sent letters to the Gold side as well. And eventually those letters get funneled to me, and I have to figure out and decipher what the email address of the person requesting the letter might be. So I do a lot of Googling. So my question to the group is, first of all, have you heard about this program? How effective is it in your area? And then the next part of that is sometimes when I get this request to generate the letter, it's also requested to have an auxiliarist present this letter in person. We've done that on a handful of times where we've had these nice padfolio or portfolios that we've printed the letters and presented it to the Eagle Scouts. So 2 questions. Do you know about this program? Have you heard about it? If so, has it been effective? And if need be, would you be interested, or would people in your local area be interested in attending these ceremonies, whether it's Eagle Scout, Scoutmaster, Bridges, or the Girl Scouts? There's one more comment. The Girl Scouts send me huge lists in batches. I get these Excel spreadsheets sometimes with 300 or 400 names of Girl Scouts that are attaining their gold. So I figured out how to do a cool mail merge. So that's kind of a hard one to show up at a Girl Scout Gold Award ceremony and give out 400 letters. So I don't know how often these groups get together. So the two questions are, do you know about this program? Have you heard about it? How effective is it? And would you be interested in actually partaking in person, giving out the awards when the restrictions are lifted in terms of in-person meetings?
Do people know about this opportunity?
This is Brandon, the SOAS for 8th Western Rivers, Division 33. Yes, we actually just had one of our Sea Scouts that's also just get his Eagle Award just yesterday. And he got one of the letters from the Commandant. So,
Great.
And I would be interested in helping out in my area if need be. Or
Wonderful. Do you know how that letter got generated? Because I don't remember sending a letter out.
And therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
well, so our skipper gave his mother a list of a resource, basically a spreadsheet of a whole bunch of contacts, our senators, our representatives, the commandant. And so she sent emails to all these individuals. And so this Sea Scout actually just has a binder of all these certificates and letters that these government officials have sent this scout.
Yeah.
And actually Leatherman and sent him a letter as well as a really nice Leatherman tool
Oh, nice.
for his Eagle Award.
Nice. I was just wondering who wrote the letter from the auxiliary side. It's just,
I think he said that it came from the Coast Guard Commandant. And
oh, the Coast Guard Commandant.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Not
So
the
I
auxiliary.
think it's
Okay.
probably no. I think it's probably one of you probably wrote it. I mean, it's probably one of your form certificates or.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Good, great. Well, that's great. I mean, I think it's a great PR opportunity and a visibility opportunity to talk about the auxiliary. And I'm really excited about what the momentum we have been enjoying with the Sea Scouts. So I just posted my email in the chat here too. So if anyone has any more questions, requests, or interest in participating, ideally, it'd be great that folks requesting these letters, it automatically generates it. I mean, it takes me maybe, I've got it downhoned under about a minute or so where I can do some quick Word and PDF and generate an email. But there were times when things were hot and heavy. I was getting about 5,000 requests a year. So it's been keeping me busy for 10 years. I love it. And also due to privacy, I used to keep track of people requesting what their Eagle projects were. I was cutting and pasting, and now I don't do that. I don't keep any records of what's sent out. I don't know, but they do share their Eagle projects and the projects that they're working on. It's really cool thing, and I really love it. And I've been enjoying this now for 10 years, and I look forward to doing this for 10 more if the opportunity arises. So,
Stefan,
Thank you.
one thing you might, and this is an example of one of those things that in order to disseminate this information that we get in this meeting, would you consider possibly doing a Facebook post that delineates what you do and
okay,
how to become connected with you? And I'm going to talk a little bit in my turn about that kind of problem and solution as far as you just said this to us, presented this to us, but to really distribute this idea, we have to figure out ways, and Facebook is one of the better ways we have right now. So I'm going to request that if possible, you do that. It could be a paragraph long, just an explanation,
Absolutely.
maybe a graphic, and send it to me, or just send it to Bruce or I. As far as the Facebook page, we can okay it, and it just goes on, and I will drop it there. But there's a further conversation.
Well, and we'll also get it posted on the Sea Scouts BSA Facebook page, where some of our customers will see it as well. So great idea.
Great.
Hey,
Good.
Stefan.
Yep.
This is Craig Brown. I'm the DSO from District 13. One of the things that we've learned out here on the West Coast is, and I was particularly involved with it with academy appointments, we would have people requesting that a representative come to present the, in the case, this would be the letter, or in the case of academy appointments, their academy appointment and stuff. And unfortunately, what we were commonly finding was the individuals that where the requests were being made for somebody coming to it, we were finding that we had several hours one-way direction travel to be able to attend to do that. And that became an issue out here on the West Coast, where we've got a lot further areas to travel and stuff. So that's just something that that we need to logistically take into consideration.
Okay, no, that's a great point. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that every letter gets distributed or handed out in person. Sometimes when I do get a request, I go through and I try to figure out locally which flotilla is the closest. And a lot of this, really, the momentum for those meetings have happened in New Jersey. So there's been a bunch of meetings at a bunch of these Eagle Scout ceremonies where the auxiliaries actually presented. But that seemed to be the hotspot. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that, Craig. And once I post something on the Facebook page, we can figure out the logistics. And again, I'm not suggesting that every letter gets hand delivered, because I think that would change the whole flow of things in the auxiliary.
Well, and I wasn't suggesting that everyone be delivered, but my experience was that there were individuals that would request.
Oh, they requested
somebody. Yeah. And then what we were commonly, unfortunately, finding was that those cases where there was a request, it would have involved several hours of travel time. And that's where we ran into our problem.
Yep, understood and appreciated. So.
Okay.
Stefan, Bruce, Stefan, this is Amy McNeil. How are you doing?
Hey, great, Amy. Good to see you.
I have one comment, and I don't want any of the male participants on this phone call to take it the wrong way. But as the mother of an Eagle Scout, I remember exactly how I had to work to get all the congratulatory Eagle letters. So the fact that perhaps most of the individuals on this call are not familiar with it, it may just be, it's the mothers that do most of the work preparing for those Eagle ceremonies. I can't speak to Quartermaster or Gold, but we work with the troop committee, and there is just a hand down of a packet, and I was given just a resource by the troop of how to reach out to the different people. And if I didn't have it, I investigated it. So I think it's just a question of letting the flotillas know.
Well, we'll get this information out on Facebook. That's our most our best way to get the word out as widely as we can. And thank you, Amy, for your observation, and thank you very much, Stefan, for your dedicated service in making this happen.
Great, my pleasure. And just there's a question here from Pat. It's not a generic letter. It actually is customized, so it actually takes a little bit of customization. So it's not. So it's to give. I can't say we can send certificates out to all the flotillas that they can generate on their own. I've been given permission, and I think, Bruce, that would cause a lot of problems to give everyone blanket authority signature capability. Right?
No, I had to get specific written permission from the National Commodore for Stefan to send out these letters. So he is the only one who has the authority to do that.
But happy to be involved. So thank you, Bruce, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Let me give you, we've been talking about updates to Aux Data II, and what I'm going to give you is the latest of what I have. Aux Data II has been undergoing ongoing updates and hopefully improvements over the course of the year. And a couple of batches of those relate to AuxScout. One is to be able to capture whether an auxiliarist is a Sea Scout youth or adult leader. That data point has been added to the records. And as of right now, the DSOs, ADSOs, and SOs should be able to see that checkbox. If you go into Aux Data II and go to the member information frame, it's about a third of the way down the page, and it'll be on the left-hand side. Now, the piece that is missing from that at the moment is that the DSOs, ADSOs, and SOs should be able to set that checkbox. And we checked earlier this evening, and that capability hasn't been implemented yet. I can do it myself, but that hasn't been extended to the DSO and ADSOs yet. The other piece of enhancement to support AuxScout is that Aux Data is now able to capture completions of the Sea Scout Adult Leader Basic Training, BSA Safety Afloat, and BSA Safe Swim Defense completions. So that's the good news. And I also know that DIROC's offices currently are able to add that information, but they have not been told about that yet. And I'm trying to get the powers that be to understand that that information needs to be passed down to the people who are actually going to be doing the work. I know that in some districts, that sort of information is being handled by the IS staff. And so far, I've been unsuccessful in explaining that to the people who have the keys to the kingdom on that. But I sent another email out this evening, and I'm hoping that that will get some action. So the bottom line is most of the system work to implement these updates has been completed, but not everybody who needs the permissions or the instructions have been given that information. So we're really close, but we're not quite there. And I promise you that when we do get that sorted out, I will let you know before anybody else knows so that you're prepared to deal with it. Any questions about Aux Data II right at the moment?
Yes, Bruce, this is Craig Brown again.
Go for it.
Can we go ahead and start letting people know that their certificates can in fact procedurally be loaded into Aux2? I know that my DSO-IS officer has been doing it, but under your instructions, I suggested that they hold off on submitting that in. And I do have a bunch of certificates that people have shared with me previously to be able to be that can be updated or uploaded, excuse me, if we're quote unquote permitted to start doing so officially.
It's certainly okay to get them into Aux Data II, and of course there are a number of both positions and areas of responsibility where people have training requirements, and having that in their Aux Data records would be a real plus. What I would say is if you have the kind of relationship that you can reach out to your DIROC's office and let them know that this is in the system now, and would they be okay with ask them, would they be okay with starting the process to get those entered into Aux Data? If they're okay with it, then just coordinate with your IS chain of leadership to make it happen in a way that your DIROC's office is comfortable with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and actually in the case of D13, our DIROC's office has already empowered, given the authority, directed, however you terminology you want, the DSO IS officer to do that. It was my replying back, hey, we have not officially turned it on. And that was a reply back to my DSO. So I will go ahead and let him know that that the AuxScout program is now saying that we can, as opposed to previously saying that we could not. So.
I think it's okay as long as your DIROC's office is okay with however this is going to be handled. The policy, the SOP says that this data gets, actually the SOP doesn't say anything about these particular courses, but for the youth protection training, the SOP says that the DIROC's office is entering them, but I think that about half of the districts are having the IS folks handle it. So, you know, if your DIROC's is okay with it, I don't see any reason why that should be a problem.
And Bruce, just quickly, this is Ron. They have finally figured out how to expire youth protection appropriately after 2 years.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions about Aux Data? Okay, I don't want to belabor this point, but we're at a time of year where succession planning, if it hasn't entered into your thinking, probably ought to. The DSO and ADSOs, and actually the SOs, your terms of office coincide with your unit leaders. So if you're a DSO or ADSO, when your district commodore changes hands, your term of office is over, and his or her successor will get to pick their staff. I know that in some cases, some of you are hoping to continue on, and I realize that in a lot of districts, the DCO position, the district commodore position, isn't changing this year. So that may not be an issue for you, but if it is, I hope that you have somebody in mind for stepping into your shoes, and that you can help to point the incoming district commodore in the direction of that individual. Just as a reminder, your district commodore is supposed to discuss this with me before they make an appointment. That's what the SOP says. I can tell you that only one of the 16 districts have done that so far. So the message really hasn't made it out to the district commodores. And I don't really want to belabor that too much. My concern is just that we have people in the DSOAS positions who are interested and committed to doing the best that they know how in that job. And of course, every division should also have an SOAS, and many do, but many don't. And we're making progress, but we're not where we want to be just yet. So are there any questions about succession planning? Think about who you want to come in behind you. Doesn't have to be somebody who will do things the same way you're doing them, but just needs to be somebody who is willing to get the job done. Okay. We have a bunch of staff questions that were submitted, and they fall into 4 broad categories. And I just want to do a time check at this point. We have just a little over 15 minutes left on the hour. Some of these things are quick answers, and some of them will be discussion points. So I'm going to try to use the time as best as possible. And I'm certainly willing to stay afterwards, but I want to honor my commitment that this is really just an hour meeting and you don't have to stick around longer than that. So we had a question that came in: are Sea Scout honor guards allowed to carry replica rifles during flag ceremony? Well, the quote that I have down here is from a knowledgeable scout leader. But to be honest with you, I was unable to find any written policy on the BSA website. This scouter seemed to think that BSA policy is that scouts do not carry rifles in color guards, not even dummy non-working ones. Please don't have scouts carrying ceremonial rifles in your color guards. And the reason for this is that BSA tries to avoid doing things that are overtly military. I don't know for a fact that that's really BSA's policy, but I provided this photograph here of a ship from North Carolina that was doing the color guard for our district D-Train Saturday night dinner a couple of years ago. And this is a ship that is chartered to Coast Guard Auxiliary Flotilla. And what they've chosen to do is they have a couple of paddles that they have painted in the Coast Guard colors. I had never seen anything like that before. I thought that was especially cute and really appropriate. It's certainly in the spirit of what rifles are used for, but it avoids using the rifles. And the cost of what they did had to be almost nothing. So Paul, that's really not the answer. Not a definitive answer, but you might want to consider doing something like this. I think this is really, it's very dignified, and it was very well received by the district when they saw that.
Sure, and that question came from, we did a ceremony for the Submariners Memorial, and that was their question, why we were not carrying rifles to protect the American flag. So that was where that question came from. Thank you.
I would like to add that given some of the publicity this week with the shooting on the set of Rust, I would think that right now would be a real good time not to have any minor in any type of a situation that's public, that represents us, handle a weapon. For right now, I think there's a lot of raw media out there, and I think we ought to leave that one kind of where it lays.
Yeah, and I think the approach that these particular Sea Scouts took to this challenge was very effective. It was creative, dignified, and yes, it was, and it certainly reinforces the connection to the Coast Guard as well. So this is just Bruce Johnson's opinion on this, but that's as good as we're going to do on that. Okay, we had a question about rules for auxiliary monies used in support of Sea Scout ships. And I picked this particular ship. It's the current national flagship, and they closely partner with a Coast Guard auxiliary flotilla very nearby. And 3 of the adults in this photograph are auxiliaries. So here's what I was able to find on this subject. And I know that this is an issue. I've heard it 2 or 3 times in the last couple of months. The only written policy on this, both come from the auxiliary manual, both in section 5N. Expenditure of such funds shall only be in support of authorized auxiliary activities. And disbursement of funds must always be used to further the general purpose of the auxiliary. And you'd like to think that that was really pretty explicit, since the Sea Scouts are the Coast Guard Auxiliary's official youth program, but I can tell you that every district is likely to have their own particular interpretation of that. If you have a flotilla or a division that wants to send funds to a Sea Scout ship, I would recommend that you check with your district's legal officer and find out what he or she has to say on that subject, because they may have a particular interpretation. I believe that some types of uses of funds, things like paying for instructional materials, should probably not be problematic, but paying for dues, for example, may be problematic. And by paying for dues, I mean paying BSA dues. I think that may very well set off alarm bells. Okay, the other thing is how to handle finances with an auxiliary sponsored Sea Scout ship. And rather than trying to summarize what that says, just go to this URL, and it has agreed upon language that both the Boy Scouts of America and the Coast Guard Auxiliary's legal staff have approved for how that is handled. So I don't know whether that really answers the question. If not, does anybody have any follow-up questions on that?
I got a couple of questions that kind of relate to this.
Yep.
One is, if a scout ship is setting up a bank account,
yes,
aren't they supposed to have a tax number or something?
No, but
Yeah,
if you go to that AuxB wiki address, it will give you exactly how to handle that.
Okay. One other question.
Yep.
Somebody just offered a boat.
Okay.
I guess to the flotilla for use for the Sea Scouts, but the flotilla can't afford to, I don't think, to upkeep a boat and find a place.
Well, first of all, donations to flotillas have to be handled through your district's legal staff, and they will know how to handle that. That donations to the auxiliary are not an unusual thing, and they know how to handle that.
Okay, I mean, it's supposed to be for use for the Sea Scouts, but I can't see the Sea Scouts taking over it.
Well, it depends on the situation. I would just suggest that you go to the DSOLP and ask them what procedures you need to follow. It is permissible to do it, but you do need to make sure that you follow Coast Guard auxiliary procedures to handle it. Okay.
Yeah, and Bruce, this is Paul Fernandez.
Yeah.
If he needs help with that, he can contact me, because of course we have a 47-foot boat. We created a 501c, three auxiliaries, in order to accept that donation. So if that's the route you would like to go, I'll be glad to help you with that.
Ooh, me.
Okay. All right, next topic. Some of you have probably heard, well, first of all, I'm sure you've heard in the news about BSAs working through bankruptcy filing and a civil court case related to alleged child abuse from 30+ years ago. As a part of the settlement of that civil court case, BSA and its local councils and its insurance companies are having to fork over hundreds of millions of dollars to go to the claimants and their lawyers. This has got at least one of BSA's chartered organizations, the United Methodist Church, concerned about their liability exposure with regards to this matter. And the question came to me as to what relevance does what the United Methodist Church have to the Coast Guard Auxiliary? And The answer to that is absolutely no relevance whatsoever. Per the Coast Guard Auxiliary's legal staff, we are fully covered, provided that we're following the rules that this program was set up for, regardless of whether it's sponsorship or just helping out the scouts through approved missions. You know, follow the rules that are in the AuxScout SOP. Make sure that any auxiliarist who's working with scouts have completed the BSA youth protection training, and that training completion is included in their Aux Data training record. But don't worry about what the United Methodist Church is doing. It has no relevance to us with what we're doing. Any questions about that? Okay. Program updates. First of all, we have 5 minutes left. And this is a really great question that came in, and I'm wondering, does anybody have any thoughts on this subject? What can we do to generate enthusiasm? And I suspect that this is a question as much for, you know, what we're doing in the auxiliary as what's happening in scouting or the world in general. Does anybody have any thoughts that they'd like to share on this topic?
I have many, but I think 5 minutes isn't going to cover it. But one thing I can say is participation in our marketing efforts is one way, at least overtly, to show that A, we're interested, B, what we're doing. And without that, we can be a tree falling in the wilderness that nobody hears. And that's something that, especially given the last 2 years of what we've been through, I think is a critical thing to think about. And I would be happy going forward to have that dialogue with anyone. And I have some ideas, but I also have some concerns as far as this is concerned. But I do think at some point, telling our story is one of the best ways we can at least place ourselves in front of our public and the public at large.
Thank you. That's a really good point. I asked this question to a really good scout leader that I know, and he had 2 quick comments that really were really on point. One is stay connected and make it fun. I think we're all having trouble, you know, keeping up with things because we're sort of hunkered down in our homes, and we're not getting out to see our friends in the auxiliary or in scouts as much as we might like. But we have technology to allow us to stay connected, and we should use that as much as we possibly can. And yeah, I've heard people say that they're really tired of getting together with people over Zoom, but, you know, mix it up, find other ways to do that. There are other ways to do it. And don't forget to make it fun. 20 years ago, when I was a Sea Scout skipper, I had a mate who was responsible for working with the scouts in our ship to help them plan activities. And she was really good at it. And what they would do is they generate a plan for each activity to make sure that all of the important steps were followed, and that we didn't forget to plan for things that weren't expected. But in every procedure that she developed, she reminded the scouts to make it fun. The scouts are going to hang around if they're having a good time. And frankly, auxiliarists will do the same if they're having a good time. So find a way to make it fun. So any other thoughts on this subject?
Well, I got a quick comment or two.
Yep.
Yesterday, they got together at sector headquarters and had a tour of the command center, and then learned how to use dock lines, because they're going to actually have to try and use it pretty soon on tying up a boat. But anyway, the ship is like about as big as it can get right now. So I'm going to have to convince some other flotillas to maybe try and start one, which may or may not happen.
The ship, incidentally, one of the newer ships sponsored by the auxiliary is in Washington, D.C. And they started out initially, I think, with 14 Sea Scouts, and they're now up to 30. And I think their goal is to get it up around 80 or 90. But they're super enthusiastic, and they're always looking for ways to utilize Coast Guard and Coast Guard auxiliary resources to make it fun, have variety in what they're doing. And of course, some of these kids are thinking about Coast Guard careers or careers in the maritime services, and giving them an opportunity to see the Coast Guard in action helps them to visualize what they're up to.
Can one skipper handle that many scouts?
Well, he has about a half dozen mates, and he's already planning for a time. I think he's thinking about 3 years down the road, he's going to step back and have one of the mates take over. What I'm really hoping at some point is when the ship gets larger than what he's saying right now, they'll think about possibly splitting into more than one unit. But I'm loath to tell a skipper what to do, especially when what they're doing is working.
Okay, good ideas.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Bruce, I've seen along that same line, I've seen ships where they had large numbers of people, and it was the bosun's mates that really made a big difference too, having the youth being in leadership positions.
The ships that have done well over the last 18 months during COVID are the ships that have found ways to get together when they could, and have utilized internet connectivity throughout the time. The national flagship during the year almost doubled its membership, and this at a time when they could only get together now and then. So it is possible to do it. We are now past the 1 hour point, and I would like to keep on going, but if anybody has somewhere else they need to be, please go ahead and do that. And we are recording this, and you can, we'll post it probably tomorrow morning, and I'll let everybody know what that address is once it's available to everybody. So let's press ahead and talk a little bit about some of the other questions that came in. This is a really great question that came in. What is the formula for getting divisions involved with Sea Scouts? I have 3 districts in mind that I'd like to talk about what they've been doing, but would anybody like to volunteer an answer on that? You're waiting for me to select a volunteer by walking down the row and spitting the tobacco juice at somebody.
Bruce, from our side.
Gotcha, Bart, go ahead.
Yeah, we have 2 ships that are sponsored by divisions, and we have a third one. We are having a third one. I think looks like it's going to finally get around and get started up. I hope. Again, sponsored by the divisions. And basically what it is a 1 or 2 individuals at the division that just take the job on and say, look, we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it is. It's generally the SO of the division.
do you ever get together with your SOs?
Yes. Yeah, we do. I try to meet with them monthly. My next, though, this past 2 months has been a little challenging due to schedules, but we're due to get together the first Sunday in November. And I also bring on board the territory commodores.
And I think that's really important to involve the local Sea Scout leadership in your meetings, because that's a great opportunity to share information and build the network so that you can get the job done. Holly, would you please talk about what you do in 5th Southern? I know she's there.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, with regard to what though exactly?
What do you do to get the divisions involved with Sea Scouts? Are you?
Well, I don't know, Bruce. I'm not really prepared to answer that right now.
Okay.
Sorry,
well,
I'm really zoned out.
We've had a long and challenging weekend, so I'll tell you what Holly does.
Thanks. Well, you can say it, and then I'll tell you if that's really what I do.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going.
Yeah, Holly has monthly meetings with her SOs, as well as with the NST Commodores and any council Commodores that she's aware of. And rather than focusing on reporting, the focus seems to be on, what's working and what's coming up, and what challenges are they having. And of course, not all of the divisions in the district are actively engaged, but a number of them are, and the SOs that are involved are very committed to getting the job done. Is that a good start, Holly?
That sounds good. And we have some on the call tonight, yes. Right.
So, and I'm sure Holly would agree that it's as much, the ideas that they bring to the table and their enthusiasm that helps to make things happen. But Holly is the nice one of the two of us, and she's really good at keeping up with her SOs and keeping them informed and involving them.
Can I give a
Chris,
excuse
me?
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Chris, you were the other person I was hoping might talk.
Yes, but I think Bill had a comment first.
No, go ahead, Chris, and I'll tag on the end because it's a slightly different tack.
Well, I was just going to say is we empower our SOASs to basically fulfill the mission of the AuxScout and their areas. We don't try to overdo or come in and manage the program for them. We're there for a resource if they need anything. So I don't think any of our ADSOs are too overpowering or anything like that. I know Jim Wolf would probably tell you he's not overpowering, but all we do is basically help them out with charter paperwork and answer questions, or get questions or answers to them, and we're all in as a team. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bill, what did you want to say?
I'm going to offer the perspective of someone who has been trying to get our division interested and have found that to be a challenge that I have not successfully surmounted as of yet. And the one thing I have found as far as the resistance to it is I have not found that person at the division level, any person at the division level who really first of all, understands what the program is and is also willing to get in behind it and sell it to the rest of the division leadership. That to me has been the key. I've gotten that kind of perfunctory interest that says, oh yeah, that's great, it's cool, everything's fine. But as far as somebody finding that one person who will carry the ball in the at the division level, and the other thing from the flip side, getting divisions involved with Sea Scouts, I think also means getting divisions involved with their own flotillas that are involved in Sea Scouts. And both of those tracks are problematic, but also I think in there lies solutions to the promotion of that relationship.
Well, and you know, you're alluding to a broader but related problem. Several of us on the call have served as district captains, and we've looked at the relationships between flotillas and divisions. And in an awful lot of cases, the divisions are not terribly concerned about what their flotillas are doing or how healthy they are. You know, in some divisions, one or two of the flotillas are struggling and are in danger of falling apart. And what is the division doing about it? Not much of anything. Working with the Sea Scouts provides an opportunity for flotillas and divisions that are struggling with membership to do something about that. But the problem is that somebody's going to have to do some work. And
work is a four-letter word.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't get it. You know, why did you join the auxiliary if you weren't expecting that you're going to have to work your tail off? I joined the auxiliary because I really thought that the auxiliary and the Sea Scout should be working together. But I had to work my tail off for 15 years for the auxiliary before I was lucky enough to have a chance to do something about this project. And this gives the auxiliary a great opportunity to get younger people involved in what they're doing, change the age demographic of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Wouldn't you like to see more of this young lady in your flotilla and fewer who have gray hair like me? You know, that's just, I'm sorry. Anyway, that didn't really answer, I think, the question, but maybe it gives some ideas.
Well, Bruce, let me also chime in here.
Yeah.
With a couple other observations. In my division, it is really the flotillas that are pushing the AuxScout program over the division. Well, division supporting, of course, since I'm the SO, but they're doing it because they want to do it. They're coming to me for questions and guidance.
Mm-hmm.
In one of my other divisions, I'm starting to get requests from the Sea Scouts to match them with flotillas. Hopefully the flotillas will be open for that. If they're not, I think Chuck will probably go through and pound a few heads. Mm-hmm. But you know, that is the real success of the program is not at the district level, not at the national level, not even the division level. It is at the flotilla level. That is where the action and the resources need to be put, and the focus needs to be given.
Well, the role that all of us play, from me to the district, the DSOs, the ADSOs, the SOs, our job is to help people at the unit level be successful with this program.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And if we can put them together with resources, if we can help them solve problems, and ideally it's help them solve problems rather than our solving them for them, so that they learn the process and they learn where the answers are, then we've done our jobs.
There's another thought, and that is a monolithic approach in general is real problematic, because I can take my own division. I don't even live in the district, to be honest with you. I live outside of my district, and our district is very different than, say, 5 North or South, or First North or South. We're out in the middle of the country, so approaches here might be more involved with say river type orientations, where a lot of the folks out on the coast are looking at ocean going type, and they have some advantages that frankly a lot of the folks in the middle of the country struggle to find. I won't say they don't have them, but they struggle to find. So trying to not be monolithic in how we deal with these things, but look at the situation on the ground and try and work with people on the ground, I think is a solution. Often I think we get into a monolithic approach to a lot of things. For one thing, we are a quasi, not government, but we are related to government processes. So I think it's something as we go forward, if we can find ways to communicate with our people at their level, where they are, maybe we'll have a little bit more success.
Right. Okay, let's move on. How are flotillas and divisions providing RBS support at scout camps? And this question came up from Amy McNeil. I want to start by saying that Holly and I go to our council camp every year and do vessel safety checks on all 180 some boats. And the council loves us for doing that. And of course, our SO VE loves us for doing that because it gets numbers up for our division. Amy, you want to talk about what you and your colleagues do in your area?
Sure. The process started for me as an active adult scouting volunteer. I reached out to the aquatics chairman from our council. He was having issues with getting new youth staff people down to camp and getting them trained. And I know National Camp School offers, now there's a whole program for that. But what we can do just as auxiliaries is go to our local councils, ask for the name of those aquatics people and have a chat with them, take them out for coffee and show them that, yes, we can offer vessel exams for any vessels they have at their scout camps. But there's a lot more. We can offer merit badge work as counselors. We can emphasize the recreational boating safety message, life jackets, all of the PA events, the scout shows have a presence there. And I usually hook up with our Sea Scout ship during scout shows. And there's just a variety of different ways of kind of injecting yourself into the scouting program where it's needed. My goal was to bring the recreational boating safety message, enhance it within our council, and yet show council people the auxiliary and what we're about. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I could get into the weeds, but if anybody wanted to know more information, please just drop me a line and I'll be happy to have a conversation with them.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this subject?
One other thing that I took upon myself was to become a cold water immersion instructor. And so I began offering that down at summer camp to the adult leaders that attend camp, because later in the week, they go on a whitewater rafting trip as part of the high adventure component of our program, our scouting program. And that's very much appreciated.
Is there cold water in Colorado?
Just a couple streams here and there. Just like I tell my attendees, I said, we only have cold water here. There is no warm water, and ours starts at 14,000 feet as snow. And it doesn't get heated at any part as it cascades down the mountains.
True.
That's a sobering thought.
The importance of doing this is twofold. One is that we're supporting the Coast Guard's RBS mission, but it's also you're scoring brownie points with the scouts. You know, they get to know who you are, and they get to trust you, know you, and you know, when you need something from them, you know, they'll remember you. So building those partnerships will only make the auxiliary stronger, while also promoting boating safety. Okay, let's see, membership. Let's see, we had 3 questions that came in on this. How are others advertising for new members inside and outside of the scouting community? And yeah, I'm sure we can get Bill wound up on that, but I'd like to hear what somebody else has to say on that.
I'm resisting.
Yes.
Bruce, this is Amy again. I have a couple of suggestions.
Please.
That I use. We just had one of the ADSOs for food service come and talk at our October flotilla meeting.
That's a good
That
one.
was eye-opening.
Yeah.
There are youth out there that want to become chefs.
Yeah.
And if they don't know it yet, they might after they get a pitch from somebody from food services. Of course, we're very active in ICS, and that definitely was something that we've put together in our council. But for youth that aren't familiar with ICS or maybe want to learn it, that's another avenue that you can use for advertising. And oh, I had one other one, but I forgot. Okay, I'll remember.
The train left the station.
Yeah,
and you weren't
yeah, a
aboard.
little too fast.
Okay, well, the next one is sort of related to the first one. What has
Before you go on, I was good.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm going to say just one thing. Don't forget your traditional ways of advertising. Write a press release in the paper. Right? You know, put something on your Facebook page. We have things that we seem to just blow by that have been there for years that are tools that we can use. And I'll stop now.
Right. And actually, one source of information about that, Josh Gilliland has done a couple of really good workshops on targeted advertising. And while obviously he's talking about targeted advertising for scouting, it's, I think, equally true for the auxiliary as well. So it would be worth going to the Sea Scouts BSA YouTube channel and having a look at his thoughts on that subject. Let's see, what has National put together that can be used to encourage Sea Scouts who are nearly 21 to join the auxiliary? Well, I'm not sure who National is. I think that's me. And I'm not sure that I've done anything along those lines. Anyone want to take that one?
What comes to mind almost immediately is, you know, okay, nearly 21, but that means they're pretty much through college. But it's the AUP program.
Okay.
Well, my question is, my point is even easier than that. And that is, why are we waiting until they're 21?
Right.
And to piggyback on that, if we create an interesting and dynamic front to what we do, whether it's on Facebook or in any other form of communication, then actually the suggestion can be very easy. Do you like what you see? If you do, come join us. And it's more about creating the atmosphere and the synergy that makes the ask a whole lot easier.
One of the things that we're hearing a lot from the current Sea Scout National Bosun is involving the youth in doing meaningful stuff. So get the Sea Scouts involved in what the auxiliary is doing and give them real responsibility. Something that will give them a feeling that, they're not just window dressing, but they're really there for a purpose.
If they are already auxiliary members by virtue of the fact they are connected with a flotilla, then maybe treating them like they are.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's easy for flotillas to view 17-year-old members as know-nothings, and and maybe they do know nothing, but they'll stay that way if you treat them that way.
Yeah, but 17 you can join the auxiliary whether you're a Sea Scout or not, so that shouldn't make any difference from that standpoint. We just had our division meeting yesterday, and one of our flotillas has sponsors a Sea Scout ship and has a youth who is yet to turn 17. I think she's just turned 16 maybe. She's AuxOp, VE VE qualified, and going after several other qualifications. She was also one of those up there in the AIM program this summer, and I think she was also on the Eagle, I believe. So, but they treat her as a member. The only questions, the only breaks so far we've had to put on her is the matter of sea schools.
Right. Yeah.
But beyond that.
Okay.
Oh, boat crew training, include the Sea Scouts in boat crew training and get them exposed to our operational side, and that will pique their interest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, or air crew or air observer, and even TCO operator.
Okay. Discuss AuxScout presenting to junior ROTC cadets. Eric, are you on the call?
I don't think he is.
Okay, he was the one who asked.
Yeah, he brought that. Yeah, he's my ADSO, one of my ADSOs. He and another SO have been doing this on a regular basis, presenting to high school ROTC programs. Actually, it's kind of presenting the auxiliary and then bringing the AuxScout into it as a avenue for the youth to join the auxiliary, and the benefits of the STEM program and the practical side of the auxiliary. In other words, you're doing things that are assisting the real life auxiliary. You're learning skills that you can take with you to the Coast Guard if you opt to join the Coast Guard and things like that.
Can you talk to Eric and ask him if he would be willing to put on a workshop for how to put on that kind of presentation?
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he would like to. He and Adam McLeod.
Okay.
Both.
Well, I'll give that as an assignment to you to
Okay.
follow up. And that seems like an opportunity for us because it's not just in your district. I'm aware of junior ROTC units all over the country, and that's a potential avenue for recruitment for both programs.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
One other thought about that, if you look at that list, there are other maritime related organizations that
Oh, yeah.
also have a somewhat of a paramilitary structure that are people who are prime candidates if you're looking for target audiences.
Well, there's
Sometimes
also, yeah.
Go ahead.
There's also especially in the Houston area, there are about 3 or 4, maybe 5 high schools that have a maritime program.
Sure.
And that would be a natural area to focus on.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we know what the next step is on that. Okay, communication and planning. Can you guess who's going to be the next one to talk?
Bless your hearts.
Go for it.
A couple of things that I'll be very honest with you folks, I've been struggling. And one of the reasons is because I have been in a lot of transitions with building a place out in Montana and living my life after years of doing this. That said, it's forced me to think a little bit about this and also to look at what we've got available to us. I talked with the editor of the Navigator Express earlier, actually it was late last week. And the truth of the matter is the earliest we can get an article in that magazine is April. That's the reality of that. As far as the Navigator, once a year. There are also, I think, things going on within the public affairs A directorate that are becoming somewhat of a challenge, and I think are symptomatic of COVID. That said, the first thing I think we have to do is broaden our, maybe if it's not approach, at least understanding of how we communicate our program to our public and then the public at large. I asked, I don't know, it was several months ago, for one elevator pitch, one-liners. I got 4, one from Bruce, one from myself, and 2 other individuals, and that was it. That tells me that either we are not thinking about these things, or we just have not gotten around to actually taking that thinking through to at least the action of submitting a one-line sentence that can be part of our elevator pitch. We, I think, have to continually assess our materials and our distribution, which is the real problem. The problem we face with distribution is we do not have that many sources nationally that we can almost always get an article, if the article is done and acceptable, into the Navigator Express. I have one in the hopper that I do believe we can do, and I will shepherd forward, but it has to be workable. And that's something, again, we need to work on. I stand ready to be asked for help. I fairly frequently say that at these meetings and I get crickets. Now, I'm not going to be mean, but the fact of the matter is it's practicalities. As I start to face the fact that I wonder how much we're interested, then I start to face my own morale, which then slows me down. Does this sound familiar to anyone as we go forward out of the COVID period? So I'm going to ask all of you to really honestly spend 1/2 hour in the next month or 3 months thinking about how can you in your area better communicate this program. Because I will tell you, I didn't come into this program because of a background in scouting, although I have a son who's an Eagle Scout and I was a scout. I came into this because I was asked to do this part of it. What's happened is I look at this program and I talk to my friends in the auxiliary nationally, and I say, you guys are missing the boat if you are not looking at AuxScout. It is that key and that well thought out. The work that Bruce and guys, Rick Washburn years ago, who I did a lot of work with, he was in my flotilla, and the building of this program to this point. But we stand, I think the auxiliary also stands in danger of languishing if we don't put in the work. I'm trying to re-energize myself, and I apologize to anyone who I have not gotten back to. Bug me, get a hold of me, call me. If I don't call you, call me back. My number's on just about anything. And oh, you can find it in the directory. So there are no excuses. That said, we have an opportunity going forward. I think there may be some energy that we can tap into as we come out of COVID. Do we know exactly when that'll be? No. But, and it's going to be different in each part of the country. But we can be thinking to ourselves, what can we do to tell the story? Because otherwise, other than the people who are convenient to us, people do not know about this program. I talked to auxiliaries all over the country who really, they kind of go, yeah, I heard about it, but what is it? And at that point, there's where your elevator speech comes in. Don't bury them, but give them 4 or 5 points. The best of which is, do you really want young people in the auxiliary? We've said it for years. Now let's see if you really want it to be true. And then you can start there. And if they say, yeah, we really do, well, here's an option. And you all know I could go on forever. I ain't gonna. I'm gonna throw it back to Bruce, but I stand ready yet again. The other thing, I'll say one last thing, and this is something I don't want to do, but we have to create another way of communicating, and a newsletter or some one sheet down the road. This is going to take other people participating, something that we can use besides Facebook to communicate our message that is editable and distributable is, I think, a key to telling our story to the auxiliary and to our public. Enough said.
Okay, so
Ruth?
yes, ma'am.
Is Kurt Ware still on? Or Chris Ware?
Chris
Sorry.
is.
Chris?
Yes, yes.
Was I talking with you about paddlecraft?
That was one of many subjects we were talking about.
I'm wondering if a connection here can be made with paddlecraft, because that is, from what I'm hearing, in all the different avenues I have, is paddlecraft is where it's at, and recreational boating safety.
Well, in some states, paddlecraft is, they don't have regulations, and we just found that out by the state of Oklahoma. We were in a meeting with their division yesterday, and the state has made laws that says you can't touch paddlecrafts no matter what. You can put a 2-year-old in it and sail them away on a kayak. But
well,
what we'll need to do is we'll touch base and talk about this. And Bruce, do you guys have a formal paddlecraft opportunity in Sea Scouts? I know.
Oh yeah, sure. There are advancement requirements that are tailored to paddling. And actually, they've just finished a comprehensive review of the advancement requirements, and they're adding additional options for paddling. The person you want to be working with on this is Robin Pope, who was on this call earlier, but I see he's dropped off. Robin is the division chief for AuxPad for the auxiliary. He's also the president of the American Canoe Association. So, he can bring resources to bear to support on that. And as well, he's a Sea Scout skipper of a paddling unit. So
Where is he at, Curious?
Say again?
So where is he out of?
He lives in Western North Carolina.
Okay, great.
Which is a paddling hotbed.
Yep.
Correct, yes. Okay, well, thank you very much, and Amy will touch base.
Okay, that was just the other avenue I thought that the auxiliary can bring to a council.
Right.
And Amy, I think that's actually an excellent idea. And there's been a fair amount of effort put into that in the past, but just like everything, things have kind of drifted in the last few months. It's just time to re-energize and reconnect, I believe.
And that's a good segue to the last topic. And I apologize that we've run so way over time, but I got a series of recommendations from a scout leader about things that we ought to be doing differently in AuxScout. And some of the ideas were easy to do and some of them would be a real challenge. But here's the question: how can we improve how AuxScout works in the coming year? We've put a lot of effort into this program and we've had a lot of successes, but I think we all can agree that we're not where we need to be yet. So take a few minutes and think about, do you have any recommendations for changes in either the goals or the methods that we're pursuing for the coming year? What do you think should be our priorities? And are there untapped potential partners that we should be working with inside the Coast Guard Auxiliary? So I'm not going to ask for answers to that right now, but I would like you to think about that and just jot down some ideas and email them to me by the end of the week. Now, why am I asking for it by the end of the week? Well, the reason is twofold. One is that I'd like to get working on this, but the other is that I'm a realist. And if you don't send it to me by the end of the week, I'm never going to get it. So don't worry about trying to write the next great American novel on this. Just telegraph a few ideas. They can be changes to goals, or if you think a goal is really a good one, let me know about that. Or what are some of the things that you think we ought to be doing that will improve the effectiveness of the program? If you have something in particular that you'd like to be working on, let me know about that as well. Maybe that's something that we haven't thought about, and that would be an opportunity for us to put you to work doing something that really needs to be done. So are there
Bruce,
any
a comment when you can?
Sure, go for it.
I just sent two messages in the chat box. This is Bill Gertson from Spawnsboro, North Carolina. I just sent an email to the local high school principals in Onslow and Carteret County requesting a meeting to explain to their career counselors the advantages of becoming aware of and presenting the message of Sea Scouts along with the auxiliary to the high school students. If I get a positive response, or I get any response, I certainly will report back to you. But I think that those folks who have been whacked for the last 3 years with Hurricane Florence and COVID-19, they're just really beginning to get their educational program act together. This may give them an opportunity, to do something really significant, for the high school, and even the middle schoolers. Present that information to them also.
I totally agree with you. And when you get back to me, remember to include Holly and Tom Cox as well.
Certainly will. Roger that.
Okay, thank you. That's a great idea. All right, so just as a reminder, this evening's PowerPoint presentation is available at this address. I had copied that into the chat box earlier, so you can go there and pick up a copy, and we'll let everybody know when the recording of this meeting is available. I'd like to just say I really appreciate your efforts. This has been a really trying time, and I totally get it. How we deal with this says a lot about ourselves and, of course, our program. One of the beauties of AuxScout is you have an opportunity to make a difference. Your enthusiasm can help to build a stronger auxiliary, and we can also make for a stronger Sea Scout program, and we can build more, better, younger boaters who will not only be safer, but they will also build an interest in boating that will last them their entire career. So I am really proud of the work that you're doing, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can be of help to you in any way. Send me your feedback, send me your ideas for next year, for things that we need to be doing. That's my email address. And our next forum will be on January 9th at 20:30 Eastern Time. So unless there are other comments, this hour and 45-minute meeting, I think we're going to wrap it up. Any final comments from anybody else?
Big resounding no.
Stunned silence. Thank you, everybody, for coming and sticking it out to the end. You're doing a great job, and let me know how I can help you. Take care.
Ciao, y'all.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Night.
Night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night.